Welcome to another episode of Beyond Physical, where we talk about the mental, emotional, social, and at times spiritual benefits of exercise. We believe that exercise is more than movement, and this podcast is our attempt at sharing that message with the world by sharing our own as well as our guests' experiences and knowledge. If you enjoy it, we ask that you please spread the message by leaving a rating and review, or even better, by sharing with a friend. The bleak thing is a lot of people entered that to hit a PR.
Yeah.
And they messed. Did you hear about the batching kind of
I know
setup?
that some people got I was talking to a few guys and they said that they weren't supposed to be in certain batches.
So there was a problem with the planning, because what they did was they prioritized the first, like A to A, B, C, D, A to E. They prioritized according to people who have permanent gun run numbers.
No.
And then after giving all the permanent gun run numbers preference, they gave everyone with permanent Athletic South Africa license numbers kind of preference.
Okay.
So it wasn't actually
Like-
purely off of pace group. It was based off of like previous participation. So you had a lot of people who were really strong runners. Like a couple of my clients
to
were
work
looking
all
to
the way
push
back.
hard PRs, like sub 80-minute half marathons from batch E. And they're now they're literally people walking in front of them. And it was so bleak. Shame. They were getting super bummed because people kind of planned and prepped obviously to PR, and then they didn't organize the batches correctly. Because for instance with Cape Town Marathon, the batches are done and most 90% of events, even more, are done according to you input your PR for the event.
PR, yeah.
And then they also have historical data of your events.
Okay, so then
they
they'll
can
put
put
you in
you in
appropriate
in
group.
an appropriate batch based off of your capabilities. And they didn't do that for gun run. So there were
Imagine so many people in that first quarter just fuming. To be honest, I did see a lot of people when I was running, when we were going towards the the last turn for the first 5K. I saw a lot of people coming back, and I could see on their faces they were so upset
yeah.
because they were pushing hard, but I could see they were upset, they're fuming.
I had a client who so his PR was 124. He wanted to go sub one. He wanted to beat that, but he wanted to go sub 80 minutes, so sub 120. And he was in batch E, and and he ended up getting 122. So he got his PR, which is great. But I think he could have potentially
Done more.
done the sub.
And that's the thing that
sub
bothers
80.
you,
And then he's like, he's bleak about it. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. And also, it's an interesting one because I feel like it's gun run trying to pull a move and get people to, enter gun run more often so that they have those permanent gun run numbers.
Yeah.
And also ASA, Athletic South Africa, trying to force more people to sign up.
That is true.
So it's a business move, but it's annoying because it makes the experience for runners worse,
Yeah.
which is obviously a conflict of
And
interest.
I was actually
anyway.
thinking to myself, because I was reading over different numbers, and since it was my first half, I was trying to kind of get knowledge on how all this works. And when I heard that people get permanent numbers, I was like, how does that work that it doesn't affect everyone else? Because surely it does, right? So it's crazy not to hear the backfire of it if it's not managed properly.
And obviously, the Cape Town running scene it's already pretty hot, but it's growing and growing and growing. So, kind of logistical things like that, they need to be, they need to be
I
sharp.
don't think a lot of these event organizers are prepared for the boom, or were prepared for the boom that happened over the past few years.
But because also
decade of running,
because
I guess.
running is also still in a lot of ways quite an amateur sport. How it's set up and organized. You're doing Cape Town Marathon this year.
Yeah.
So you'll see that is a proper
I know, that
production.
is
That's a
locked
proper
in, yeah.
operation. The expo is next level. The actual day and how they kind of filter people into batches is really well organized.
Yeah, so exciting.
It is such a vibe. It is so sick. You must watch that. You must watch that Born to Move series we shot last year.
Yes, when you did it, right?
Oh my word! Because Mark got some aerial shots from the drone.
Oh no, that's crazy.
It looks unreal, bro. It looks honestly so cool. But so despite the walking at the beginning, I mean, for you it was just another long run.
Yeah.
You didn't plan for that.
It was super nice though. I can't lie. I think the big thing is the barrier of the mind. So when I woke up in the morning, I was like, am I really doing this? because I wasn't planning on doing it, and then I got the number from Nikos, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. But on the day, I was so nervous, so anxious, and then getting into that first 5K, I was like, and I
What
was
made you? What made you feel nervous?
nervous, not because I was, and I got this, and I thought about this quote that I read in a book. It said, I can't remember it word for word, but it was basically like not nervous because I'm not capable of it, or I don't think I'm capable of it, but just nervous at the thought of like being so excited of being capable, like just like ready to go kind of thing.
Yes.
And then also trying to calm myself down so I don't like commit too early, like use all my reserves, and then halfway through I kind of like lag out or I walk. I kind of didn't want to walk at all throughout the race. I wanted to just keep a good pace, and then if I feel like I'm going too much, just bring myself down. So it was a lot of looking at my watch and being like, I need to slow down. Self accountability.
Did you tell me? Did you tell me beforehand you were doing it? You did, hey?
Yes, I did.
Because for
Yes,
those,
yes, yes. I
yeah,
told you a week before.
for those of you who don't know the dynamic, obviously colleagues and friends, but I'm also Matt's running coach. So, but I mean, I think also, did you take note of the fact at all that I was like completely nonchalant about you doing it?
Yeah, yeah.
Like
The,
I wasn't I
the
wasn't
super chilled,
like
yeah.
I wasn't even like, I don't know. The thing is, because I didn't have any doubt that
Yeah.
you would do it and enjoy it. Some athletes I would have been like, like don't think that's a good idea. Maybe
Yeah.
rather
Maybe
don't do
step
that.
back, maybe commit to something else, kind
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah.
because I'm also a very honest coach. Like if I
Yeah.
think that something is going to be to your detriment, I'll immediately be like, don't do that. Let's readjust. Let's like look at it in another way. But you looked super strong. Like
Yeah.
when you came
I
through
enjoyed
that
it,
past
dude.
the lighthouse, then
It
I
was
was like,
crazy because I was thinking about like it was a very reflective run, and I think a lot of moments it was so nice because, and I hope I don't lose that. It's gonna be hard because I hope I don't lose it as I do more events. But it was just such enjoyment. Every kilometer that I clocked on, I was like, yes, yes,
I don't
yes.
think you'll lose that.
And it was like not even looking at the time, but just looking at like the kilometers, feeling my body, like not like I didn't feel any pain, any like discomfort, and that was the biggest goal. Finish off, not feel any discomfort, go home, chill, wake up the next morning, and
Continue with life as
like back
is.
to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom.
It's a good feeling, like
Yeah,
being
it's
able to
crazy.
just do that kind of event and then get back to normal
Yeah.
life. I remember actually talking about like watching the clock and stuff during an event. When I did the Ultra Trail Drakensberg 100K, I was running with some older guys, like because the event is so long, you spend like certain periods of time running with different people, and then you
Yes.
see them later on, and then you like reconnect, and then whatever. Because like it's literally like, I mean, it took me just under 18 hours, so it's a long event, and we were just approaching halfway, and I was with a couple more experienced ultra trail runners, and I was like, I'm so bleak. It's already almost halfway. Like,
Yeah.
like this thing's almost over. Like what the hell? Like I prepped for 5 months for this thing, and now it's almost done. And the guy was like, just wait till the end. You're not going to be thinking like that. And I was kind of like in two mind frames because I was like, you're probably right, but I was also like, I love being able to savor an event and enjoy
Yeah.
every moment and be present and not wish the event away. I mean, there are certain circumstances like when Mark was filming Born to Move last year, where to be honest, I did just want that last stretch to end. Like I think I was about 2Ks from the finish or 1.5Ks from the finish, the final Cape Town Marathon stretch.
Yeah.
That was hell because I'd been cramping for like 10Ks already before
Oh,
then.
flip.
It was absolute hell.
You
It
were
was
dialed in for that
I
event,
was
eh?
super
So
dialed
it's
in.
crazy that.
But what I didn't have dialed in was the timing and the execution of my nutrition.
Okay, that's so
And
important, eh?
yes, and I also think there were a couple of factors. I think I wasn't meticulous enough with my nutrition. I also hadn't done enough race pace efforts under significant fatigue. So what my coach then, Brendan, changed for the follow-up event when we missed the sub 3
Yeah.
was we went from just big Saturday runs and like progression runs to race day simulations.
Okay.
So you
That's
do
very
like a
cool.
3 hour or like a 30K race day simulation where I'm running the entire, 3 hour or 2 hours of the workout at 4:08. Like, and it's like you're putting your body into the
You're locking
into the
in
spot where
basically.
that's
Yeah.
how it's going to feel on race day, and that's what we hadn't done before that initial sub 3 attempt, and I think that helped a lot psychologically. And it's actually something that with an athlete of mine I'm currently working through, because it's a fine line you're treading, because you want to give the athlete that psychological peace of mind of, I am capable to run at this pace for this amount of time,
Yeah.
or I can run this distance, but you also don't want to push them into a space where they're overreaching.
Yeah.
And then they get overtrained and then they pick up an injury. So for someone who's never run a marathon before, they might want to cover a 40K run in prep. And I'll say to them, you don't want to do that,
Yeah.
because that's going to take 3 weeks, 3.5, 4 weeks for your body to fully recover.
Fully recover,
And then we're just losing time. We've been counterproductive. However, for their mind, they almost need that. So you need to play around with the programming, maybe give them something a little bit less that they could recover from, and get them to do things that will make them believe in themselves, because there's so many elements to getting somebody to run further or faster or both than they've ever done before.
Yeah.
And the psychology of it is so big.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a big win for you now, building into Cape Town Marathon, having a half marathon behind you, having run a 10K the previous day, and coming to work the next day and not hobbling around.
Yeah.
You're in one piece, you've got that. Because now you've covered 32 Ks in 2 days. That's 3/4 of what you're going to cover pretty much on race day at Cape Town Marathon.
Yeah.
With a little bit of adrenaline, more nutrition, a good night's sleep, and a bit of extra, just switching on, you can do that extra 10 Ks.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. It's kind of important to reinforce one's ability by testing oneself, but sensibly.
Yes,
Because you can take it a bit too far, and then that's now actually taking us back a few steps.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is like, of what I experienced now in this past race, is almost like how important it is to mentally be there, as opposed to like have my body, like not have the focus all on my body, but just get into like a certain pace and leave it, and then just have a conversation with myself the whole way through. Be like, don't look at this, don't look there, like just look forward, like don't worry about this person, don't worry about that, because there's so much things going on around you. There's music playing, there's stimulation, there's people talking to you, there's like, so it was almost like just, and super interesting, which I only noticed like halfway through. I was just breathing through my nose, no mouth breathing, because I was just trying to focus so much, and it was also very relaxing at the same time. I don't know how practical that is, like going into further events or longer distances, but it felt really good. I felt really calm, and it felt like I could just focus on one thing at a time. And it was like something I've never experienced before.
Have you read The Oxygen Advantage?
No, I haven't.
So I've got that book on my shelf. I've been wanting to read it for a while, but I'm just not really, I haven't gotten into the headspace to read it, to crack it open and give it a go. But I know that the main takeaway around that book centers a lot around nasal breathing. And I am aware of the benefits at a very surface level. And because of that, it's something that I've tested in my own running. But I can't go into great detail around why it's good. But I think if you're able to do it and play around with it during your exercise, it's definitely something worth incorporating. Because, as I said, I mean, I don't know the specific science, but I know that the thesis in that book speaks significantly to nasal breathing.
Yeah.
And it is very calming. I don't know if it's just the focus.
It just gives a lot of like less effort. Like it's almost like you're not going all the time, so you're not using a lot of your diaphragm all the time. You're not like like constantly pushing oxygen or bringing oxygen in. You're kind of more slow, more calm, more mindful about your thinking, about your breathing, and then also allows you to collect your thoughts. So it's not like you're making noise that's going to distract you from thinking. It's like you can just hear your thoughts. It's a weird. I can't explain it.
I think
that's something like what it was.
I think it also plays into your parasympathetic nervous system.
Definitely.
Where so there's sympathetic and parasympathetic, and obviously so sympathetic is fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest, if I'm remembering correctly, but please fact check me. And nasal breathing, it's going to kind of slow the uptake of oxygen,
Yeah.
which is part of that rest and digest state where it calms you. It's the opposite of the fight or flight, which is take in as much oxygen as possible, dilate the pupils, and you get ready to fight
Yeah.
and or run. So I think when you're doing long distance running, you want to tap into the calm,
Yeah.
rest and digest. You're not in a fight mode. You're in an energy conservation mode.
Yeah,
You want
you're
to
just
try and
looking to kind of
conserve and
like slowly utilize that energy
be
block
as
by block.
efficient as
Yeah.
possible. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is quite an interesting point, but I think we should both and the
Should dive
audience
into more.
look
Yeah.
at the oxygen advantage because it's a really cool topic.
Even when I play like football, like when I've played five-a-side and I breathe through my nose, it's like I just go. Like I'm going. Like what I normally used to do, well, recently, was we would play, like, I'd meet up with some friends, we'd play for like a few hours. We book a court out for 4 hours, and I'd be able to play that full 4 hours. Not saying that my body isn't paining, but like in terms of like feeling out of breath, I never struggle with that. But I think it also has to do with the nasal breathing and obviously fitness levels and stuff. But I think it plays such a big role, and it kind of it, it gives you the ability to push more. I don't think it just allows you to push more because you have to make the mental choice as well to push more, past the pain, past a bit of discomfort, and then just kind of like manage from there.
I think it does. I think it is a lot. It relies a lot or ties in a lot to the fact that because you are nasal breathing, you are tapping more into the rest and digest, and you are being more efficient and conservative with your energy consumption, which to segue, running, long distance running specifically being more of a kind of steady state
Yeah.
exercise and one that you would benefit from controlling your breathing as much as possible,
Yeah.
as opposed to something like what's coming up this weekend, the 21st, I believe it is, Hyrox being much more of a fight or flight
Yeah.
type kind of
You're
exercise.
not going to do that much nasal breathing in that.
No, you can try.
Yeah.
You can
I
try.
think
But
in parts, you can definitely try and do it.
and
it would
maybe,
help you.
exactly, maybe
Like
if you were smart with it.
transitioning. That's what I'm thinking from the top of my head. Like in between a transition, like go into nasal breathing and then tap into like your normal breathing again. Whatever your breathing technique is, you know.
I think almost so. I just think go a bit closer to the thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think almost the Hyrox competition. So, are you participating in it?
No, I'm not.
So I'm participating in this Hyrox competition. I've literally only done one Hyrox workout in the build up to it. So I have very little, and I've done very little research. It's kind of, for me, to be honest, it's just another workout with
Okay.
a whole bunch of people, with hundreds of other people. So it's a
Good way
cool
to look at it
vibe. And
because you can enjoy the experience.
absolutely, I'm not looking to smash PRs because I have no R. I've got no
Yeah.
record. So I don't know. Anything I do will be a PR. So, but it's kind of, and I don't know where I was going with this. Rest and digest, CrossFit. I mean,
I think you were
Hyrox.
trying to talk about the way that, obviously, talking about nasal breathing, like how that could work for steady state, but
Oh
going
yes.
into-
So having zero experience with it, what I'm thinking is going to work is using my running, because my running is fairly strong, as a recovery point.
Okay.
Because the layout of the event is, if I'm not mistaken, lift, run, etc. It may be run, lift, but I actually don't know.
yeah,
And you see how much prep I've done for this thing. But I'm going to use the running for recovery. So I'll keep myself as much as I possibly can within zone 2. So my talking pace of running, I don't want to gun it too hard because I think a lot of the movements like lunges, wall balls, burpee broad jumps, ski erg, normal erg, all of those movements are very difficult to stay out of threshold and
Yeah.
keep in zone 2 because
you'll
when you
definitely-
yes, you can do it slower, but
Yeah.
I think naturally because you are recruiting more muscle fibers, your heart's having to pump blood to your extremities with a lot more kind of intensity. It's just far more challenging for your body to keep that heart rate under control.
True.
So I'd rather just kind of go through those movements in a way that feels natural and comfortable without rushing it, and then recovering in the run. who knows? I don't know what to
I don't know.
expect
For
from
me,
it.
that makes sense. I don't know. Like I like to do this thing where I just kind of like what you said now, which is making a little plan for yourself, a little game plan. And I like to personally take that and I'll be like, that'll work. Like you just have to know that it'll work. And then somehow like when it works you can make more sense of it. And to me think like hearing you say that, it just makes more sense, because if you do one section and you go into it onto the next one and you go into steady state and you maybe utilize some nasal breathing, like surely that will help with the oxygenation and deoxygenation, get more like of that circulation happening through your body, and then get you to calm down, bring your heart rate down, so that you can mentally then think about the next phase.
I think that's
Puts you in
very
a better
important.
place, right?
And one thing that you learn through endurance sports is that the possibility or the risk of a bonk is high if
Yeah,
you don't control yourself,
exactly.
and it's more realistic to preemptively manage a bonk and just not bonk than bonking and then trying to unbonk.
It's a
It's
massive
almost
fight.
impossible.
Yeah, it's a
Once
massive
you've
fight.
once you and a bonk, for anyone
A
who's
bonk.
who's not familiar with the terminology, is pretty much when your glycogen stores are completely depleted. You've hit a wall. Lactic acid or lactate has just built up, and your body is just not functioning optimally at all.
Yeah.
I remember bonking at Cape Town Marathon 2023, so last year, and my average pace went from 4:10 or 4:11 a k to about 5:30.
Yo.
So I just dropped a minute and a half almost per k,
Mm.
and there was
What
no
happened in
coming
that
back.
moment?
No, I was cramping.
Okay.
I was fighting as hard as I could to get my legs to move faster, but they just wouldn't move. And it wasn't for a lack of trying, I don't think, because I really was doing my best, and or what I felt like was my best, and I just couldn't. I can remember running past Mark and them. There's even a clip of me doing this, because part of the nutrition protocol was if I cramped,
Yeah.
Jason and them had this cramp ease spray that was supposed to
Yes.
immediately alleviate cramp, and I just ran like going like this, like just asking for some cramp relief, and
Yeah.
it was pretty much just that was from about 29 k's. So we were passing City Hall, where the orchestras and
So it was
stuff
like
play.
a 30k block
Yeah,
that
and
everyone talks about.
for
Huh?
the rest of the race, I was just in absolute. I was in agony. It was
Yeah.
sore. It was so. And the thing is, even if I tried to like dial it back a little bit,
You still
as
felt it.
soon as I then started moving back towards where I thought I had to be, I was straight back into that area of I'm trying really hard to get my body to comply, but it's just not.
So it makes you think about like your future approach that you could utilize. And I'm not saying that this is a spot on way of doing it, but like if you don't try different things, then what's the point, right? So like as opposed to you being in that pace, like now you know for your next one when you go into it, if you know how you felt or at what mark you felt, at what pace you felt, then surely you just try a different way of easing into it. So that you do a bit, you bring it down, you do a bit, you bring it down, and then who knows, by the third or fourth time that you're pushing up from that kind of up and down slope, then you might be able to feel comfortable at the pace and then create a new average pace for yourself and then go from there. So maybe it was just the transition that you just needed a bit more experience around.
I think, yes, I wasn't used to pushing that hard for that
Mm.
long, and I also, like I said, didn't have my nutrition as dialed in as it should have been. And I also didn't listen to my body's cues telling me you're probably going to bonk at some point.
Mm.
And that is something, with the limited experience that I do have, I will try and apply to Hyrox, because I am going to play it safe and conservative.
Mm.
And then when I know, I'll study a little bit, like maybe the night before, I'll look at how the event is supposed to look, and I'll just analyze the different movements. And if I get to, let's say, the 75% mark and I'm feeling good, then I'll go. But I'm not going to come out of the gates like an animal and just try and throw down,
Yeah.
and then end up halfway through and just absolutely dying and barely managing to put one foot in front of the other. That's not something I want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have an idea of how I will manage that, but it's totally novel. It's a new thing in terms of an event that I'm undertaking, so it's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, it's a it's
What is your thought on Hyrox, like as an event or as a sport, essentially?
so I've done, like I said, I've done one workout and I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it is the type of training that I enjoy. I enjoy because my time is definitely at a premium, I'm very picky with what I spend my exercise budget on. And I, at the moment, prefer to split it between focused, specific strength training and running, be that in the mountains or on the road. I
Yeah.
predominantly like being in the mountains. And Hyrox, it's difficult for me because what I've identified it as theoretically is basically weighted threshold training. And I feel like I can get, with obviously a muscular endurance component, I think that I can get that threshold benefit from doing fartlek workouts, heel repeats, stuff on the watt bike, whatever it may be, running or cardio related. I don't think that I need to be, doing 100 lunges or whatever to get that.
Yeah.
With running in between. So as a form of exercise, I don't think it's the most effective. It depends what you're trying to get good at. I think if you're trying to get strong and cardiovascular fit, you're probably better off splitting your time into strength training workouts and then cardiovascular focused workouts, as opposed to this kind of like muscular endurance mix thing. But it is a fun way to test yourself. It's a race, so it's competitive.
Yeah.
There seems to be quite a strong community element to it, similar to CrossFit, where there are these people who feel very passionately about it, and they're building this brand and this whole kind of movement. But right now, to be honest, I don't really see it. Like, it's not really speaking to me. But I also haven't given it a proper go. I remember I used to despise running, and until I gave it 100 days of running every day, I hadn't really seen the light.
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, I can't fully speak to what I think about Hyrox. I think the event is going to be a great measure of what the whole vibe is like.
A nice introduction into the industry as well.
For sure. But to answer your question, which was, I think, what was it? What do I think about Hyrox?
Yeah. What do you think about it? What are your thoughts around it?
I think that it is a cool, innovative spin on fitness racing, and I think we need more of that. And I think they've done that quite well by taking the more technical elements out of CrossFit. Whether it's specifically something that I will lean into in the long run, I don't know. I don't think so, but time will tell, because like I said, I've not given it enough of an actual spin. And you, where's your head at with Hyrox?
Well, same page as you. I haven't really read up about it. I feel like these things they come like when you don't familiarize yourself with it, or you have your selected training models or methods that you use. You don't really see these things, and then one day you just see it pop up, and you be like, "What? This has been around for this time." I think that in the same phase, like, I'm not really interested in it at this point. I don't think that that's something that I would get into anytime soon. But I am interested in learning more about it and seeing where the benefit lies. Whenever a new thing comes out in the way that we can move, I always try and think about how can we practically utilize this in a way that can be like, how can we practically put this in a training block, for example, in like a bigger training block, which is like our journey of life and sustainable movement. And how do we take this from like doing that to going for a run, to going for this, to going for that? Because that's what I am interested in. I'm interested in taking as many things as possible, giving them all their own appropriate time, and then from there getting the benefits of them, letting it compound, and then resting, and then going again. Like, that's what interests me. So I'm interested to hear from you how you find the experience and to get more like information from that, because it's always different being in that space, and I think you'll get a lot of information that you can share with all of us here at Horizon about that space.
So to speak to, and I think it's important then that as a team and as a business, we expose ourselves to as many different avenues of the industry as possible to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening, what people enjoy, what certain things actually entail, so that we can practically speak to questions that were asked.
And assist people, I guess.
Of course. So being able to assist with having actually done it, I think, is very important. As that episode weeks, almost months back, where we spoke about practical experience versus theoretical in a coach, I think it's important. And I think another thing, so I'll tie this into how's your nutrition study? How's that going, by the way?
It's going well. I'm in my last like few months now with it. I do admit I've slowed it down now that things have gotten busy in terms of work and with clients, and I'm slowly getting back into it because I also kind of took a bit of time to focus more on my running and more on like being mindful just about like adapting workload, because I do admit that a lot of things have gotten busy in my life personally and in work wise. But that's going well. It's going well. I'm trying to not rush it. I seem to like go through any material very quickly because I guess from working in the industry, when you kind of work with people or you get information, you're trying to digest it and then look at how you can practically give this to someone, because someone will ask you for something. You might know like 90% of it, you need 10%, you go and research for 10%, you find the 10%, you put it with the 90%, you have 100. You help them, go to the next person, you know? So I'm trying to put that mindset down, leave that at work, and then go into my studies with a totally different student mindset where I can take more time to digest it and not just relate everything to practical. Because I feel like as soon as I try and do that, I kind of get like bummed out because I'm like, okay, now where can I put this?
That's what I actually find to be a huge win and a huge challenge in my studies at the moment is because my postgrad is centered around managing a business. I often find, and I've shared with this with you guys before, I often find myself getting really distracted because
Yeah.
I'll be doing my coursework and I'll be like, oh my word, this fits into Horizon and this away, and oh, we can do this at work, and I'm no longer studying.
Yeah.
I'm back into
Yeah,
Horizon
exactly.
mode.
And sometimes it needs to be an entity on its own, you
But
know?
it's cool because it brings the content to
Yeah.
life, but it does kind of take you away from it. So it is important, as you said, to separate. And I like that you used the word digest because I was going to segue us a little bit. And I wanted to find out, I'm not sure how much you've gone into bioavailability and how certain compounds or certain elements of nutrition are digested or processed or metabolized by our bodies in different ways. So the kind of the way that pea protein is metabolized versus protein derived from beef in our
Yeah.
bodies, and the different levels of bioavailability. So how much of that protein our body can actually absorb, and how it can be the same macronutrient, so protein,
Yeah.
but because it's from different sources,
Yes.
our bodies derive different levels of benefit because of different levels of bioavailability.
Yes.
And I think that extends to, and I sound like such a junkie here, but like when you drink different caffeinated beverages, Earl Grey tea versus coffee versus Red Bull, for instance, the highs, quote unquote, that you get, or the buzzes or the focus for each one of those different beverages feels quite different. And fundamentally, it's all caffeine. However, the caffeine is derived from different sources.
So you're gonna take it up differently.
Exactly, and then
Yeah.
that feels different, and your cognition is different, and although it's still the same thing, to take that back to what we were initially talking about, exercise, the highs that different exercises provide us with are all kind of at the end of the day relating to serotonin, releasing that happy hormone of, oh, that felt amazing.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is because of the different sources of that experience being different, you actually feel different. So a running high feels different to a weightlifting high, feels
Yeah.
different to a Hyrox high, feels different to a yoga mobility flow high.
CrossFit.
And it's
too.
quite interesting because you have like a very calming, relaxed, sort of euphoric feeling after a mobility session. You have a very clear giddiness after a running experience. You have a very excited, confident, focused feeling after a lifting session.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of the same hormones
Yeah.
that are being released. And I think that's where going and experiencing Hyrox is cool because
It's gonna be like a combination of
different,
everything.
yeah, it's a different experience. So
Yeah.
it gives you that different sort of mental, I don't know, whatever that you get from exercise. And I thought that from the one workout that I did do, it was very unique. It was like that. It was its own kind of category of, and I don't know what other word to use, of high. So I was like, that's quite nice. Like that's actually that's quite a cool thing that I haven't really gotten from other forms of exercise.
Yeah. And I think like with all due respect to it, I think like as long as you can manage it and like stick to the technical side and make sure that everyone is doing it with the correct form, and everyone is like that is participating into doing a Hyrox workout, understands everything that needs to go into, I think the benefits are there to take away. Like talking about it in that sense, like getting a combination of everything that you possibly enjoy by doing it, like when doing it by itself, could be a massive hack in terms of like doing your running block, doing your strength training block, your mobility block, your high intensity block, and then going and using this like the Hyrox workout, almost like to add everything up and then finish it all off, go to recover and then do it again. And I think it's good, like you said, like it's an innovative new kind of style or new setup, and I think we do need more things like that, because in society right now, in the industry, we need to take all these things that could stimulate us and put it in the right package and then utilize that to kind of get people moving in towards the right direction. Because if you get someone to move, like
That's
that's
a
the
win.
goal at the end of the day. Like you can fine tune it afterwards, but the main thing is that you're taking someone that was probably not passionate about movement and you show them something that's appealing to them and you get them to move, and that's a win.
And it can be a sort of, and this is turning into an incredibly drug-centric analogy chat today, but that can sort of be the gateway drug
Yeah.
to getting
What can be the gateway?
into
It
health,
can be the gateway.
into exercise and lifting, because it's for them a fun kind of environment
Yeah.
where they are lifting, arguably, not optimally for getting stronger, but they're still lifting, and they weren't lifting before. So now we've made progress. We've got some sort of strength training movement component, although the way that it's being implemented is not strength training
Yeah.
optimized. It's still, you're lunging, what's the other thing they do? Farmers
I
carrying.
was just about to ask you, like, what's the movements that are like very prominent in a Hyrox workout? For
So
example?
you've got burpee broad jump, which is not a strength training movement, but it requires strength, obviously, because you're pushing yourself off the ground and jumping. You've got wall ball, you've got farmer's carry, you've got lunge, you've got ski erg, I think you've got normal erg, so rowing, and then you've got, what are the other things? There's either one or two more, I can't remember. But Gideon actually sent me a story that is so funny on
What is it?
Instagram. He hates on people like you have no idea. He sent me this video of this one event that was running with people doing like a
Yeah.
Hyrox work, and it was like not a single strength training movement done. And it's actually true. I mean, there's a strength component to doing those exercises, but that's another one, sled push. And that's what he said to me. He said not a single weight lifted or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, and sled doesn't count. And I was like, that's actually a very fair point. Where, at least I suppose with CrossFit, you've got like squats and things involved. However, it is still that element of what we're trying to figure out here is how to introduce complex compound lifts, things that require form competency and quite complicated movement patterns, or movement patterns that people are nervous to perform because they seem quite challenging
Yeah.
biomechanically. Incorporating that and showing people how to do that, it's something that Hyrox has. They've removed that barrier by just keeping it to very, very simple movements. Sled push is incredibly simple.
Yeah.
Sled pull is very simple. Lunging is pretty much just walking by touching your knees to the ground.
Yeah.
Burpee broad jump is kind of the same. It's also, you need a little bit of coordination, but you're ultimately just getting down and then jumping forward.
Yeah.
So is wall ball. You're squatting and throwing. So I think that's where they've really been smart, is they've looked for the simplest workouts or the simplest exercises that are relatively safe. And I think you're going to find that the injury rate in Hyrox will be significantly lower than a CrossFit setup, because CrossFit, just the nature of how that sport works, is there are Olympic lifts, there's gymnastics, there are highly technically advanced movements, which even if you've got the best coach in the world, when you are building up and maxing out, there could be one little kind of weakness or
There's a
one
high
foot
risk,
wrong.
high risk,
and
high
then-
reward.
Exactly. So there's that element of it too.
I think to add to it, I think which is why you going would be such a massive experience. Like I don't know if you do it, but I do it a lot of the times. Like when I do, either, like when I either do one of the classes here at the Horizon, or I do like a group class somewhere else. Like I always will do a movement, or I'll go through a certain routine, and I'll kind of feel it, and I almost have like this awareness where I was like, oh my word, if I didn't do this, that could have been an injury. Like, then I think about the next person. I go into like coach mode. And then, like it's just an immediate thought. And I think it would be interesting if you went just to kind of like have that awareness so that while you're going through this routine, look at zones in which, like, even though for you, you might not feel it, like just think about it and be like, oh my word, that actually it wasn't that bad, or that could have been something, because then you'll get the experience or get a taste of like, okay, there will be a lower risk of injury in this. There won't ever be like a 0% in any training model, and I also think like if we're looking at Hyrox now, because it's like coming up and because a lot of people are getting into it, I'm trying my best not to look at any new training model that comes in and being like, that's not good, that's not amazing, it's not going to be beneficial. Because I think if we all want people to move and we all want like the statistic to go up in terms of people getting into movement and feeling okay with it, we need to try and like create a safe space where it's like if the person is struggling with the movement, whether they do high rocks, CrossFit, running, anything, we like as fitness professionals we kind of try and manage that and then get them just to take a step back and then go back into it. We just have to do a few touch-ups, and I think that's the most important thing, so that we don't like take that joy that someone has received from doing their first event and then be like, you shouldn't do this at all, you know. I think that's where the sweet spot will be for growth through Hyrox, and then for growth like for surrounding fitness like methods or models with Hyrox, and then the growth together will be quite nice.
I think as long as you're doing the best that you can to touch on the surface to some level of the fundamentals and the basics, trying to get strong, trying to have a healthy cardiovascular system, and moving regularly, however that might look for you, remaining open to different forms of movement and different events and different whatever it may be, is it's good. It's
Yeah.
important because that's also how you build a sustainable lifestyle around movement. Is not being married to one specific thing only
Yeah.
and completely focusing on that thing. That will create awesome levels of achievement. Probably you will reach levels with that certain form of exercise that you otherwise wouldn't have. And if that's what you want, that's cool. But if you want to just build a healthy, happy, sustainable movement protocol for your life, you should have some of the basics. Maybe run once or twice a week, do the fundamental strength training movements, do your mobility, and then enter a running thing here, a Hyrox thing there, switch it up, keep it
See
fresh,
what you
keep
like,
it
see what
new.
you don't like as well.
Because we like novelty at the end of the day.
Yeah.
People like new things, different things. It's tough to continue doing something and to remain consistent if it is completely one-dimensional and
Yeah.
monotonous. So I think that these new innovations are important, and like you said, as coaches and professionals, to not write them off from the outset, but to remain curious and open.
Yeah, I think to add to that, it's almost like in my personal capacity, like I would take certain things of it, and I would like look at it and I'll be like, okay, there's opportunity to like take someone that is busy doing it, give them extra exercises to make them more competent at it. If they're still not competent or if they're still not comfortable at it, then they have to look at another solution, because then you're actually looking for answers as opposed to just cutting off like the possibility of doing something. Because if someone's struggling with a movement, right, and you are able to give them other movements to assist that movement, then it will be like helpful to their journey. But if we can't find that answer, whether it's me, you, or anyone else, then what must that person do? Just struggle with that movement onwards, like do it every event and just struggle with it? I think that would be an answer for us with everything, because I think there's always that barrier where it's like, oh, what I love, like for example, if I say now, oh, man, I love CrossFit or I love Hyrox, but there's one movement that I just can't get good at. What's the answer for that? Not doing the events. It's actually getting better at the
Work at that
movement,
movement.
or going back to ground level one, working on your mobility, working on your flexibility, and then find out what's the problem. Could be an old injury, it could be muscular imbalance, and then afterwards doing it I'm not saying that you're going to fully dive into either event, but you'll just be able to be at a better base foundation to find out what you like and what you don't like. And then that kind of like opens up a whole new pathway for you to experience in exercise. And I think if we can fix that kind of pathway for people, you'll see a lot more people sticking into their fitness journeys, and also like doing events, and then having the events be the place where people branch off into what they like and what they don't like, which I think there's a massive gap for now.
Totally.
Mm.
I'm with you. Thank you for sharing that, Matt. And thank you for listening. And if you participated in Hyrox, because this is probably only going to come on, you know what, we should release this on Friday, actually,
Yeah.
because it's relevant to what's happening over the weekend. Good luck with your Hyrox if you're listening to this on the
luck,
day that
everyone.
this thing has released. If you have participated in it, I hope it was well. Let us know how your experience was. And if you've got any questions about implementing Hyrox into your day-to-day, or kind of anything related to balancing different movement modalities, because it's something that we all definitely buy into here, keeping things different and well-rounded. But we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh. Thank you so much for listening to the show, guys. We love answering specific questions. So if there's anything you want to know, leave a comment or reach out to us directly at HorizonZA on Instagram, or email us at movement@horizongym.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Seb Prentice, and this is Beyond Physical.